The newly formed country of the Soviet Union was still recovering from the revolutions and the Civil War when it made its first cartoon. There are different opinions on what exactly was the first Soviet cartoon, but everyone points at Dziga Vertov as the author. Movie nerds might recognize Vertov, whose actual name is David Kaufman, since he was the groundbreaking filmmaker responsible for The Man with the Movie Camera, a wild ride of an experimental film, which could be called a documentary, I guess. The earliest surviving Soviet cartoon is The Soviet Toys by Vertov. It will soon become obvious that the early Soviet cartoons were not made for children. Instead, there were political caricatures, propaganda, and public service announcements. The metaphors are pretty easy to figure out. The fat man represents the capitalist bourgeoisie. The worker and the peasant must morph into one hideous creature to take on the rich man. And then a Soviet soldier clones himself and hangs everyone else on a Christmas tree. Yeah, okay, it's pretty weird, and as you can see, not exactly visually appealing. Before we go any further, there is a disclaimer I'd like to make, and it all comes down to this: old cartoons are hard to find. What I mean is, many old films did not survive to our days, and those that did survive often suffer from poor quality. So please keep in mind that I can only show you the films which I can actually find, whatever their condition may be. In the same year as the Soviet Toys, there was a sci-fi movie called Ulita. It's a curious flick about a group of people who travel to an alien civilization on Mars and start a communist revolution there. Well, a group of fresh graduates of the short-lived Vkhutemas art school made an animated film on the same topic, which they wanted to be included in the movie, but the director refused. And I can see why. It's an absolute nightmare. In the cartoon, called the Interplanetary Revolution, the greedy capitalists escape to Mars in their shoe-shaped spaceship. A brave Soviet soldier follows them, arrives in a technologically advanced city, finds it too peaceful, and incites a violent revolution. The futuristic landscape looks neat, but the imperialists are rendered as some of the ugliest creatures I've ever seen in a cartoon. Even the so-called good guys aren't much better. And yes, I do find it interesting that even back in 1924, the Soviets associated that one particular symbol with something unpleasant. The same studio behind Interplanetary Revolution followed up with China in Flames, a longer film using the same technique of cutout animation. Cutout animation is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of redrawing the characters for each frame, like in drawn animation, paper cutouts of individual limbs are placed in front of the background. It may look crude, but it can be used very effectively in the right hands. Anyway, in the mid-1920s, the newly formed USSR was paying a lot of attention to communism in China, and that's what this cartoon is about. A part of it is your typical poster-like propaganda, with the same monstrous capitalists from before. However, the segment about rice farmers is actually visually pleasing, with backgrounds clearly inspired by traditional Chinese art. Some sources refer to this as the first Soviet feature-length animation, although with its current runtime of 32 minutes, that title is questionable. Maria and Semyon Bendersky, a married pair of animators, made a stop-motion film called The Adventures of the Little Chinese. Two children, tired of slaving away for their English boss, run away and sail across the sea in a surprisingly sturdy crate. Their visits to Africa and the United States don't go well, as the former is full of evil colonists, and the latter has a rude man. Fortunately, a dirigible takes them to the USSR, the true land of freedom. A common animation format at the time was an animated propaganda poster, usually only a few minutes long, and with a short romantic title, something like "What the 13th Party Congress said about cooperation." I only seem to find these in poor quality, and with subtitles slapped on top, but they're not much to look at. There's a lot of fast-paced writing and political caricatures. This one makes fun of private enterprises, which were still allowed to exist in the USSR at the time. We'll Keep Our Eyes Peeled is about foreign capitalists ruining trade with the United Kingdom, or something to that effect. The topic of Fearsome Vavila and Auntie Arina is women's rights. Arina, free from work on the International Women's Day, goes to an all-female village meeting. Her abusive husband would prefer that she cooked food for him instead, but Arina's friends sent him running. Soviet animation was lagging behind technical innovations, but in 1931, the first Soviet cartoon with sound was released, Sideways Street, which is a PSA about traffic safety. The main character, this ugly little man, is a member of some committee on road safety. Ironically, on the way to the meeting, he violates a bunch of traffic laws and gets into an accident. The animation looks like it was influenced by Western cartoons, and as for the sound, like in many early sound films, the recording quality is pretty poor. Everyone sounds like a robot.
Автомашин, удары хлестки, переходи на перекрестке.
Black and White, as you might guess from the title, is a film about oppressed black people in what appears to be the southern United States. Supposedly, this film has been edited so many times that the original version is no longer available, but the message is still clear. Then we have The Music Box, a somewhat elaborate piece of anti-monarchy satire. A military commander is appointed as the mayor of a city. The commander's head turns out to be completely empty, so the Tsar installs a special music box in his head. Because of this, the commander is programmed to shout a limited number of commands, which appear to be enough to completely ruin the city. I don't personally find this particular animation style all that appealing. The last cartoon I want to mention today, The Lord of the Household, is an interesting one. In the stop-motion film, a man moves from an old dilapidated house into a modern apartment built by the latest trends of the 1930s. He can't resist bringing his old junk with him, which is infested with ticks. Soon the entire building needs pest control, and an ethereal force throws the man into a bathtub. For a stop-motion film of that era, it's done very well. There's a lot of camera movement, something not common in this style of animation, and the characters have a wide range of emotions. This is because the director of the film is Alexander Ptushko, a famous stop-motion animator, and we are sure to see more of him in future episodes. In the meantime, the Soviet animation industry was getting better and better at cartoons aimed specifically at children, which is a story we'll continue in our next episode. Viewing recommendations. I'll be honest, most of these cartoons are only good as museum exhibits. I wouldn't actually recommend them to normal human beings. That last one, The Lord of the Household, that's a pretty good one, you can check it out. The others, like The Soviet Toys or Interplanetary Revolution, only watch those if you understand what you're getting into. And in the next episode, we look at early Soviet children's animation.